Over the years, I've acquired several soldering irons. You can see them displayed on this table. The first soldering iron I bought was the GOOT 60 watt iron. After that, I purchased the high wattage HAIGH 100 watt soldering iron to do thicker wires. Later, I purchased the DURATECH 30 watt soldering iron. It has a little adjustable power. The last and latest soldering iron I acquired is the MILWAUKEE M12 SI cordless. I decided it was time to buy a cordless because sometimes when you're out in the garage, you're out in the workshop, out in a car, it's much more convenient to have a cordless soldering iron. So I got the MILWAUKEE M12 SI cordless soldering iron. So in this video, I will compare the MILWAUKEE cordless soldering iron against the other 3 corded soldering irons I have. In front of me, I have prepared some auto cables. This is a 3mm size and there is a 6mm size, much thicker. The idea is that I want to see how the different soldering irons perform with thin and thicker cables. So join me in this video and let's find out together. To test how well each of my 4 soldering irons perform on Automotive cables 3mm. I've laid out 3mm cables here, 4 of them in 4 different colors. I'll be testing the blue cable with 30 watt solder iron, orange cable with 60 watt iron, grey cable with MILWAUKEE M12 cordless 90 watt iron, purple cable with 100 watt soldering iron. The first soldering iron to test is the DURATECH TS-1540. Its maximum power is 30 watts. I've adjusted it to the highest temperature and that obviously sets it to the highest power rating, 30 watts. I've turned the power on this 30 watt soldering iron, so we'll wait for it to get hot. And by the way, all the tips of the 4 soldering irons, I filed them so that they're clean. For the test, I'm using 60-40 solder, 1.2mm thick. Let's begin the test. And this isn't about trying to do a proper solder or anything for strength. It's just about how suitable the different power rated soldering irons perform on the 3mm auto cables and the 6mm auto cables. Right, that's the 3mm auto cable using the 30 watt soldering iron. Works well. See the joint done by the 30 watt soldering iron? That's pretty good. The second soldering iron to test is the GOOT KX-60. It's a 60 watt soldering iron. Again, I have cleaned the tip by filing it. So let's do the test. Oh, that's very fast. Fast and neat. Done. Fast and neat. I do get the sense that the 60 watt soldering iron is more than adequate for 3mm auto cable, and actually the power could be less. For instance, the 30 watt sufficed. If you're using a 60 watt like this, you have to be very fast, otherwise it'll start melting the insulation. The third soldering iron to test is the MILWAUKEE M12 SI cordless. It is rated at 90 watts power. Before I start using it, let me walk you through some of the features. So the soldering head can be set at 3 positions: straight up, at an angle, and at 90 degrees. To release it from the lock position, press in, let go, and it will lock into the next position available. The soldering head, it has a replaceable soldering head, so unscrew, that comes off. In fact, that screw assembly comes off. This is just a cylinder. And then the tip. And this is what is a ceramic heating element. So this is fixed. Anytime you want to change, you replace the head. What comes in the kit is one of these pointed tips and also a chisel tip. And you can buy the pointed tip and chisel tip as spare parts. Let me put these back. Screw it tight. I've also filed that tip clean. A good design feature of the soldering iron is this fence. With this fence here, it will not roll, so that you can put it on any flat surface. This direction or the other doesn't matter. That's a good safety feature, so it doesn't end up burning the table and rolling away as well. It takes a M12 lithium battery. What I have here is a 6mAh M12. It's a bit big for this, but that's the smallest size I have. So how you fit it is, goes in there, nice click. The technical specifications say that with a 2mAh battery, the soldering iron will operate for 45 minutes. So with 6mAh, it's obviously 3 times that. I would suggest that if you have 2mAh batteries, it's probably better suited to the soldering iron purely from an ergonomics point of view, because with the 6mAh battery, it's very heavy at the back end, whereas with the 2mAh battery, imagine it's a third of this size, it's much lighter to hold and operate. Now how do you operate it? Turning it on is very simple. Just flick that switch on. The red LED showed you the power capacity remaining of the battery, so there was 4 reds. That was good. When it's blinking green, it means that it's warming up. Once it achieves the operating temperature, it will stay green like this. So now it's good to go. The specifications say it takes 18 seconds to heat up from cold to operating temperature. There's also a LED at the front end, so whatever object you're pointing at will have some light cast on it. That is useful. So let me pre-solder this one. Remember, this is 90 watt capacity. Done. I've pre-soldered the first part. Let me pre-solder the loose end. Done. That's very fast. Right, now let's solder and join the two. Done. Fixed. That was nice and quick as well. So there you go, nice tight joint. Smooth. Flows well. So no, I like this. I just have to get used to using with a heavy back end battery. It's useful when you're working away from the house, away from 240 volt power supply, or even if you had 240 volt power supply available, it's just the convenience it offers being cordless. Working in cars, sheds, in the backyard. To turn it off, I flick this down and you see it turns red. What that means is that the soldering iron tip is still hot. So if you see it's red, it gives you a caution that you mustn't touch the tip. When it becomes cold to touch, the light will go off. The fourth and last soldering iron to test is the HAIGH 100 watt soldering iron. Again, I filed the tip so that it's clean. Let's start by pre-soldering the fixed end of the wire. That was quick, being 100 watt. Now to pre-solder the loose end of the wire. That was quick as well. I think 100 watt is actually overkill for this job. You can see how fast, and you got to be very quick and careful. Alright, let's see how we can join these wires together. Done. More than enough power for these thin cables. In the next round of tests, I have set up 6mm automotive cables. So this white will be for the 30 watt soldering iron, red for the 60 watt soldering iron, blue for the 90 watt MILWAUKEE M12 cordless soldering iron, and black for the 100 watt soldering iron. I've also put this 3mm automotive cable here and here, just so you visually have a sense of the difference in size between the 3 and 6mm automotive cables. In this test, I am expecting that the higher power rated soldering irons will perform better, providing faster soldering time compared to the lower capacity soldering iron. Let's begin the second round of tests involving the 6mm automotive cables. The first soldering iron is this 30 watt DURATECH soldering iron. I've set it to maximum power output. Let's pre-solder this. You see, it does, the solder doesn't run all over. You have to be heating different sections because the cable is thick. So if you really want to solder all around, you have to move around the entire wire. But for this demonstration, I'm just gonna solder the top half. Now to pre-solder the loose wire. Yes, 30 watt is not adequate for 6mm automotive cable, I would say. Look at that. The solder just doesn't flow. You can do it with a 30 watt soldering iron, but it takes a bit of effort, and I can feel the cable getting hot. Let's put a bigger lump on top. Now this isn't how you properly join, you actually twist the cable together. I just want to show the difference between the different soldering irons based on power rating. There you go. Takes a bit of effort with the 30 watt soldering iron when the cable is thicker. So that's it. As I said, I'm not trying to do a perfect join. I haven't soldered the bottom half. I just want to see how well the solder runs based on different thicknesses of cable and different power ratings of soldering iron. The second soldering iron to test is the GOOT 60 watt soldering iron. Let's pre-solder the fixed end. Oh yeah, 60 watt is much better, more efficient. Much faster flow. Much faster. Now, as I said before, this test is not about how to do good solders. This is horrible solder. This video is not about how to do good solders. It's about how different power rated soldering irons perform against thin versus thicker cables. So the test is really to see how fast it causes the solder to flow evenly. Right, let me do a pre-solder of the loose end. was getting too hot for me to hold even with this 60-watt soldering iron. There. Look, in reality, if you're doing a proper soldering job, you intertwine the two ends and it'd be easier to just run the solder through that, but I'm just trying to see how well the solder runs based on the heat capacity of each soldering iron. That's done the solder now. I'm now powering up the MILWAUKEE M12 90-watt soldering iron. It's blinking and now it's stopped flashing, so the soldering iron is now at operating temperature, ready to be used. Let's pre-solder the blue cable. That's nice, that runs very well indeed. Pre-solder the loose end. I've pre-soldered the loose ends. Let's see how easy is it to join. There you go, done. Again, I stress, I'm not trying to do proper joints. I'm just trying to show how the different power rated soldering irons perform based on different thicknesses of cables. There you go. I think the MILWAUKEE 90-watt cordless soldering iron has done very well. Look at that. Very well indeed. In fact, I had less difficulty with the MILWAUKEE 90-watt than I had with this 60-watt corded. I'm gonna turn the MILWAUKEE off again, and it goes red to show the tip is hot. The fourth and last soldering iron to use is the HAIGH 100-watt soldering iron. So we'll pre-solder the fixed wire. Done. Now we'll pre-solder the loose end of the black wire. $100-watt is definitely adequate, and to be frank, I don't think it's actually necessary. Flows nicely with the 100-watt soldering iron. Alright, let's join the two. See how well it flows. Done. Certainly flowed well that time, look at that. So I repeat, this is with the 30-watt soldering iron, 60-watt soldering iron, MILWAUKEE cordless 90-watt iron, 100-watt iron. In this video, I tested 4 soldering irons. 3 corded soldering irons with power rating 30 watts, 60 watts and 100 watts against the MILWAUKEE M12 SI 90 watt cordless soldering iron. In the test I used 3mm automotive cables and 6mm automotive cables. The test was simply carried out to see how the different power rated soldering irons performed against thin versus thicker wires, and to see how the solder flows evenly, quickly over the copper wires. Please note, it was not a demonstration to show you how to do a proper solder joint of two wires. The way I soldered, they were not good joints. As far as I'm concerned, the M12 performed very well. The fact that it's cordless means that it's the first soldering iron I pick up to use because of its convenience. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. Do subscribe to my channel for more and to help the channel grow. Thank you so much.